Hello, yogis. This practice is designed to stimulate all of the yin tissues through the upper body. Now, traditionally, yin yoga really just focuses from the waist down, but that's somewhat silly because we do have fascia through the entire body. So, this practice is going to make sure that we really get into a lot of the fascial connections and fascial tissues through shoulders, neck, upper back and side body and lower back. So we're going to really focus more from the waist up. For this practice, you will need a strap, a couple of blocks, a bolster, or a substitute could be a pillow or a big rolled up blanket. All right, coming to a seated position, sitting on either your sit cushion or a folded blanket and bringing those sit bones right towards the front of the prop. So that's just going to help set up our pelvis nicely because we're going to be spending a fair amount of time seated and we want to have a nice tall spine. If you don't prop up under your sit bones, there's a tendency to slump into your lower back and to get a bit of a C curve. And this little anterior tilt of the pelvis that happens here allows our knees to fall below our hips and helps us to sit taller in our spine. So it may not be that easy sit, which is what this pose is somewhat wrongly called, because it's not really that easy. This may not be the seat for you. You could do butterfly legs and block up underneath the thighs, or you could keep your legs extended, feet active. You could also cycle through a lot of those different modifications, just depending on what your body needs. So please just listen to what it's telling you. So sitting as tall as possible, imagine I just came along and I pulled a string right up through the crown of your head. And we also want to really think about getting our ears over our shoulders. So before we do our actual connect in with the body and the breath, we're going to do a little quick exercise that's really effective for pulling the head back and activating the muscles in the back of the neck so that we can keep our entire spine, including the cervical spine, in alignment. So you're just going to take the small end of your block and bring it behind your skull, so right above that bony ridge. And this is called an isometric contraction, so you actually don't move, you just fire up muscles with opposing forces. So you're going to pull your head back into that block, but you're not going to allow that block to go anywhere. So the opposing force comes through your arms. So you get to use your biceps here. You should feel your entire posterior neck muscles fire up. Take a break. So we're going to do it 3 times. And usually the second and the third time is when you really start to notice the head drawing back, like the head just got lighter. So let's give it another go. So block in above, bony ridge in the back of the skull, pushing back into that block, not allowing the head to go anywhere, feeling all those neck muscles ignite and fire up. Good. We'll give a rest here and we'll do one last time. So you might already feel the adjustment starting to happen. Usually by the 3rd time you really do feel it. So let's go one last time. Pushing back into that block, opposing the force with the hands, the arms. Just staying with your breath normally. And release and watch what happens. So next out of alignment, it's a very common thing these days. It's called tech neck. It's from staring down at phones, staring down at computers, or at a keyboard. Not a great thing for your neck. So every inch forward that your ears come, in front of where they're supposed to be, adds 10 pounds of pressure to your cervical vertebra. So that's a lot over time. That can be damaging. So there's a little technique. If you've been working on a computer or staring at your phone a lot that day, give that a go. So now that we've brought more of our neck into alignment, we're just going to either close our eyes here or soften our gaze into the lap. And it's time to check in with the body. So we're going to take that scan from head down to toes and check in and see where maybe we're holding on to physical tension. So checking in with those trouble spots in the body that are pretty typical for an adult. Jaw, unclench your back teeth. The mouth stays closed, but the lower jaw just slightly hammocks away from upper jaw. And then check in with that space between the eyebrows. Unfurrow any of those number 11s you might have imprinted on your forehead. Tops of the shoulders. This is big. We want to create space between ears and shoulders. And regardless of what seat you've taken today, I want you to bring your hands back behind your knees. And that's going to bring your shoulder blades onto your back. Let's check in through the belly and soften in around those hip creases. So wherever you're holding on to tension today that you become aware of in the body, I want you just to give the body permission to release and let go. Let's take one more scan through now. Let's check in areas of the body where we know we have pain. Could be from an injury or something's healing, or there's just some sort of limitation in the body. Let's just bring those areas into our awareness, just noting them so that as we move through the practice today, we stay in a safe place. So remember, if you can't breathe into something or if you can't exhale into a pose, it's because you've pushed too far and you need to dial it back some. So bringing our awareness now into the breath, we're going to start to cultivate a breath that can take us and guide us through this practice. We're just going to breathe through the nose, so bring all your awareness into the nostrils. And just becoming aware of air flowing in and out. No need to correct, no need to manipulate the breath here. So as soon as we bring our awareness in, we automatically start to breathe better. Where we're going is for a diaphragmatic breath. So you might already feel the belly responding as that diaphragm starts to move up and down in that abdominal thoracic cavity in the body. So you could switch your awareness now down to the belly itself and watch it pushing out on the inhale and moving back towards the spine on the exhale. So we're just letting our breath smooth itself out, slow itself down. It's starting to find a more balanced inhale and exhale. So the breath becomes very important in yin when we are marinating in stillness. It's when we're loading up that fascia targeted area and we really want the mind to just anchor on to the breath. So we can embrace that stillness and quiet. Remember, yin is a meditative practice. So as you're doing yin, if you're focusing on your breath, you are also meditating. So a few more cycles of breath observation here. And just remembering you'll have to redirect your mind multiple times through the practice. That's just what minds do. They get distracted. So part of the practice is noticing when the mind has become distracted and bringing it back to anchor onto your breath. So we'll blink open the eyes here if we close them, and we'll take our hands back behind our hips and we'll just release whatever seat we took. Take a little bit of a shake out here through that lower half of the body. And let's take some ankle circles, both directions. We're going to start into the neck. And your ankles are actually very connected to your neck. Let's do some pointing and flexing. So again, taking whatever seat works for you. Now, if you're going to go back into easy sit, I'd recommend changing up the legs, which leg comes in first, because that's going to change things up in your hips. Or take any of those other variations that I showed you in the beginning. So finding our nice, tall, relaxed spine. Ears are still lined up over shoulders. We're going to take the back of the right hand and bring it back behind the sacrum. So the closer the right hand sneaks over to your left hip, the more you're going to internally rotate this right shoulder. So you get to decide how that feels. And then we're just going to tip the left ear to left shoulder. So the target is the side of the neck. It's part of your lateral line of fascia. Side scalenes are the primary targets here, but also a little bit of levator scapula and a little bit of upper trapezius. So just think of letting that right shoulder melt away from the right ear. And we're going to work with the breath. Now, one of these side scalenes is actually connected to your first rib. And if you're breathing correctly with a diaphragmatic breath and you're getting that nice horizontal expansion through your rib cage, then you should, when you inhale, feel it in your neck. So see if you can bring your awareness into that connection between neck muscle and rib cage and breath. So yes, you could say, in a sense, you breathe with your neck. So there's some implications there. If the neck is tight, what do you think it does to your breath? It does have an effect. So as always in yin, time is the magic ingredient. So the longer we stay targeting the tissues, the more benefit we will get. We will create more hydration. We will allow the tissues to become more supple, hydrated, easier to slide past each other. Last few breaths here. Okay, letting the right hand come back into your lap nice and slow, and then very slowly returning the head back to center. Let's pause here as we rebound on that right side of the neck. And some of you might be able to feel that rebound happening. All right, let's try the other side. So back of the left hand comes to rest somewhere on the sacrum. Again, the closer the hand travels over to the right hip, the more you're going to internally rotate your left shoulder. Ears lined up over shoulders to start, tall spine, and we tip our right ear to right shoulder. So targeting left side of the neck. Same muscles on the other side. Now you might feel different on one side than the other. So you always have a tighter side. Your dominant side is tighter. But especially in necks, that also can be because of how we sleep. So some people sleep on one side more than the other. If they're side sleepers, and of course, a lot of people have injury in the neck. Maybe leftover from car accidents or what have you. whiplash can take a long time to heal. So we're just melting that left shoulder away from left ear. Staying with the breath, remembering to think about breathing with the neck on the inhale. Can you feel space come into that left side of the neck as you explore the connection between your ribs expanding and that one side scalene that's attached to your first rib? And on those exhales, we're always just encouraging the body to soften and surrender. A few more breaths here. All right, let's release the left hand into the lap. And nice and slow, bring that head back to center. Pausing here between the sides. So again, noticing any rebound. So we're going to work into the front of the neck now. You do have a really large muscle here called your platysma from the bottom of your jaw right down to the collarbone. So to get into that big muscle and all its associated fascia, we just need to lift our chin up to the sky. So I want you to be really conscious as you lift the chin that the shoulders don't creep up. Keep the shoulders away from the ears. Everybody has a different amount of extension capable in their neck. That's what we're doing now, cervical extension. So just really be mindful you're not pushing into crunchy sounds in the back of your neck. Once you get your chin as high as comfortable for your body, you're now going to open your mouth really wide, just like you're silent screaming. And then you're going to close the mouth completely. And you should feel the platysma. So these are not always the most comfortable positions to hang out in for too long a time. So we usually only do about a minute here. Of course, please remember at any time if you need to come out early before I ever cue you, listening to your own body. When we come out of a yin pose, we come out really nice and slow. We do not rush. All those tissues that we just stressed in a good way need to slowly move back. It's called hysteresis. So fascia doesn't like snappy, sudden movements. It's more into the long, slow, targeted stresses. Muscle likes fast, rhythmic, explosive, repetitive movement, but not fascia. Last few breaths here. And then returning the head back to neutral, just noticing anything you feel in that release. Now, back of the neck, we already ignited the muscles there at the very beginning of the practice, and now we're just going to get more into the fascia that surrounds them. So you're going to interlace the hands. Bring the hands back behind the skull, so above that bony ridge, just like when we did the block exercise. Elbows out to the side, sitting nice and tall, and then elbows drawing forward, and now slowly tucking the chin. So this is cervical flexion of the spine. And again, everybody has a different degree or range of motion. Some of you might get that chin right down to the chest. You might even be surprised to note that your chin slots right in to the clavicular notch. So that's that funny little divot-y space right between your left and right collarbones. Chin can click right in there just like a jigsaw piece. And don't be pulling or yanking on the head with the hands or the arms. They're just a passive weight. Last few breaths here. Slowly bringing the chin back to a neutral position, elbows out to the side, release the hands. Hands back behind your hips, lean back, release your seat and shake it out. All right, I'm going to change up my seat for the next section. We're moving into shoulders. So if you want to change up your seat into a modified hero pose and you have a bolster or big cushion, and you can come to sit on your bolster. So you're going to get a really nice top of the ankle stretch if you do this. Now, some people's knees don't allow this, and some people's knees just need a little more space so you can lock yourself up. Of course, if this doesn't feel good at all, pick another seat. Find your strap. So we're going to fold our straps in half and then take the looped end into the right palm. Right palm up to the sky. Strap is now dangling behind your spine. You're going to bend through the right elbow. Keep the right elbow pointing to the sky. Take left hand out, thumb up. Turn the thumb down, bend through left elbow. Find the strap. You're going to walk your hands towards each other. Now, it's really important to note that you're not pulling your head forward out of alignment with the rest of the spine here. Maybe your ears have to line up over shoulders. So breathing here. So this is a yoga posture. You might have done it in other types of yoga called Gomukhasana or cow face arms. And some people can get their hands to clasp behind their back and others cannot. And it really doesn't matter because what's happening here is right shoulder is externally rotating and left shoulder is internally rotating. Stay with your breath. So I encourage you to be playing some music at home while you're doing these videos. I cannot play music on a recording because of copyright, and it interferes with the quality of the recording. So there's a possibility you might hear, if you're not listening to music at home, you might hear a violin practicing right now. That would be my daughter. So if you can hear it, turn up your own music. All right, let's take that right hand right up to the sky. Left hand comes back into your lap and then reach up. Now reach up through both fingertips. Reach up tall out through the fingers. Palms come to touch. Hands come to heart height and push the walls away. And let's bring the strap now into the left hand. So same thing on this side. Left hand reaching for the sky, strap dangling behind you. Bend through the elbow. Keep left elbow pointing to the sky, head in alignment. Right arm out, thumb up, turn thumb down, bend through right elbow, find the strap. Start to walk the hands towards each other, keeping head and neck in alignment with the rest of the spine. Back to your breath. So opposites occurring here, left shoulder externally rotating, right shoulder internally rotating. So this practice would be ideal if you've spent a lot of time at your computer. Be a good way to end your day. Just trying to bring things back into alignment. Last few breaths here. And let's release our hold on the strap with that right hand. Take left fingers to the sky. Right fingers up beside. Reach up out through the fingertips. Palms touch. Hands to heart height. Push the walls away. All right, maybe you want to change up your seat again. And if you are changing out of that modified hero's pose and you're just going back to a regular seat, come back to a sit cushion or a blanket. So we're going to continue with the shoulders. We're going to move into eagle arms now. So arms out in front, palms turned up. Bend through the elbows. And we're going to slide the right elbow under the left. Some of you will just be challenged enough with hands resting on top of shoulders. We're going to call this level 1. Level 2 is arms at 12 o'clock, back the hands touch. Level 3 is palms touching each other. Elbows need to be between chest and chin. We are drawing our shoulder blades forward into protraction here. We are also adducting the shoulders themselves. So we're crossing our midline with our arms. Whether you're in 1, 2, or 3, come back into your breath. Now, if you have your hands at 12 o'clock, you could try going to 11 o'clock or even 10 o'clock. Last few breaths here. So if you have your hands at 10 or 11 o'clock, come back to 12. And we're all going to slowly push the walls away. And take the arms down, just give them a little shake out. If you need to switch up your seat, you could do so now. Or maybe you're going to stay like you are. And let's come back to hands out, palms up, fingers to the sky. This time, left elbow under right. So again, maybe level 1 is for you, hands resting on top of shoulders. Maybe level 2, Arms at 12, backs of hands touch, or a level 3. Palms come towards each other. Elbows between chest and chin. Still protracting the shoulder blades, but we have a different emphasis now on one shoulder blade over another. So our shoulder blades, I should say, have a lot of different degrees of movement available to them. They also can get a lot of fascial adhesions, so they can get stuck on your back. It's not a pleasant thing, and it can really affect your breathing. So if you have the hands at 12, now you could try 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock. And again, you might notice one side is much easier to do than the other. That's just normal. Last few breaths here. And if you have the hands at 1 or 2 o'clock, come back to 12. And then all of us will push the walls away. Hands down, give them a little shake. All right, hands back behind your hips. Release your hips, release your seat, give it a little shake out. You can even pop back down to those ankles and do some circling in both directions and then pointing and flexing. All right, let's get into the wrists and the arm lines of fascia. So find which seat works for you. Again, if you're staying in easy sit, just keep switching up those legs. It's good for your brain. It's good for your hips. So wrists, they take a lot of abuse if you're sitting at a keyboard or driving a car, or maybe you're a knitter or crocheter. Anyway, wrists can get very inflexible. You have nice little bands of fascia around each one, doing a pretty important job of holding the ligaments of the forearms down. But sometimes they get very compressed, very tight, very dehydrated. A lot of people get carpal tunnel syndrome. So we're going to do some things that would help alleviate that. And we're just going to try to bring some hydration into those wrists. So hands out, thumbs up, turn thumbs down. And now bend through your elbows, and you're going to bring your backs of your hands right into your lower rib cage. So make sure shoulders didn't shrug up, shoulders are released. Backs of hands in on each side of your lower rib cage. So we are holding the wrist captive in flexion. And we're going to breathe here. And this is a really good place to check in with your breath, because you should feel the expansion and contraction of your rib cage as you take those nice diaphragmatic breaths. Let's do 30 more seconds here. All right, slowly drawing the wrists forward. That might feel pretty achy. So now just bring the right palm up, and we're going to capture right fingers and right thumb with the left hand. And we're going to pull the fingers down towards the earth. So we're taking wrists into extension now. You have two options. You can keep the hand close to your body, or you can extend the arm fully. It's going to get into the arm lines of fascia. We're going to get into the arm lines of fascia another way in a little bit. So if you don't do this, don't worry. You are going to get into your arm lines. So extension of the wrist. A lot of people have problems with this one. So here would be the carpal tunnel exercise if you've got carpal tunnel syndrome. Essentially, when you have carpal tunnel syndrome, the little band of fascia bracelet, let's call it, it's called an aponeurosis. It compresses, it makes up the roof of your carpal tunnel, which the nerve runs through. And when it is tight, it compresses. So it's pushing down and it compresses the nerve, hence why you get all the tingling and nerve damage. So this is a really good exercise. I've got a visitor. Hello, Luna. Hi, baby. I did shut the door, but she's a really smart cat and she knows how to open it. And she loves yoga, don't you? Yes. All right, let's release that wrist. It's gonna feel achy, achy, achy. Just bring some movement in. And if you have a cat rolling around beside you. All right, left palm up, capturing left thumb and fingers with the right hand, pulling the fingers down towards the earth, and then either keeping the hand close to your body or extending the arm. So again, which side is easier? So again, if you've spent some time sitting over a keyboard, spend some time working on your wrist. They will thank you for it. Another few breaths. Okay. Slowly release that wrist. Bring some movement in. You might get some clicking and clacking. Okay. Change up that seat again. Let's shake out those legs. So we're going to change things up and we're going to come into the upper back now. So you don't need a bolster for this, but you will need 2 blocks. So we're going to do a posture called praying mantis in yin. So remember earlier I talked about sometimes your shoulder blades can get stuck on your back. Well, there's a muscle, and of course every time I talk about a muscle, you also have to remember it's not just muscle, it's encased in fascia. Throughout, around, it's everywhere. So subscapularis sits right underneath the shoulder blade, and they like to get fascial adhesions. If you've ever experienced it, and I have, it's not pleasant. Took multiple massages to get out, and not pleasant massages, not relaxation ones. And it affects your breathing. It hurts. Like when you get to the top of an inhale, you will feel it. So this is a good posture to help release subscapularis. So you come to your tabletop position and you have your blocks about shoulder distance apart. Your hips are going to stay elevated, but your elbows and the greatest part of your forearm are going to come onto the blocks. So hips stay elevated above the knees. Knees are hip distance apart. And now from here, we're going to bring the palms together. So prayer hands, fingers just slightly spread. And now we're going to melt our heart down towards the earth. And as we do so, we will drop our heads so our ears come in between the biceps. And now we're going to bend through the elbows and start to draw the thumbs back towards the nape of the neck. So some of you might make it all the way and others will stop somewhere along that journey, and that's fine. So you might feel how all of a sudden we really release into that space underneath our shoulder blades. Heart keeps melting to the earth. So in addition to subscapularis release here, we're also getting an opening through the front body, which is hugely important, and we're getting nice extension into lower back. So again, if you're an office person, you sit at a desk, you need to spend some time doing postures like this. Come back to your breath. Last 30 seconds. Drawing the thumbs away from the nape of the neck and pushing into your elbows as you slowly bring yourself up and away and return back to a tabletop position. So that was praying mantis. All right, let's take our blocks just off the mat. Now you might need one. Oh, you're back. You might need one. So have it handy. And we're going to come on to our front bodies. And we are going to work a little bit into opening up through pec major and pec minor and back into those arm lines. And also back into the scapula connection again. So you have two lines of fascia through the back of the arm. One is deep, one is superficial, hooking into shoulder blade. And then you have two lines of fascia coming through the front line of the arm. One again deep, one superficial, hooking into pecs. So there can be a lot of constriction and things happening. Now, if you're a person who sits at a desk like this, what do you think's happening in your pectorals? Constant contraction. Bad. It's going to be really, really, really tight. So let's work into those areas. So we're going to come down onto our front body. Just get my bigger props out of the way here. And we're going to do a pose called open wing. So you're going to take I'm actually going to turn to show you this because it'll make more sense to you this way. You can stay where you are. So you're going to take your left hand out, chest tight, palm turned down. You're going to take your right hand and just place it down on your mat by your right chest. And now you're going to roll up onto your left hip. So stacking right hip above left. Now there's options here. You can take a little bend through both knees and just have this little kickstand. Or you can keep the bottom leg straight and just scissor the right top leg back behind. That doesn't mean let your hips come back. Keep your hips stacked. Or you can bend through the right knee and plant the right foot behind the left thigh. So this is level 3. This is the harder one. This would be level 2. This would be level 1. Okay? So pick which one is available for you today. And that can change. People need to remember your body can change a lot from day to day, depending on what you're doing with it. So open wing, sometimes called scorpion. There's multiple names for these postures. So we're really getting into the front arm lines and the pecs. Now remember, no time do you ever want to feel pins and needles, numbness, tingling. That's not good. Not good signs from the body. Those are no's. So if you encounter any numbness, you just need to come out. And we're only here for a few more breaths. This is a harder posture because of the tightness most people have through the pecs. We're also exploring a little bit of our spiral line of fascia here and how that left shoulder and right hip connect. And our functional lines. So let's slowly release. And just come into what I call Superman, arms past the crown of your head, forehead grounded. We'll just take a little moment in between the sides here. And then setting ourselves up for a scorpion or open wing on the other side. So I'm not going to flip myself around, so you'll see me from the front this time. I don't think it makes much difference. But you're going to take your right arm out, chest height. Now, palm turned down. Left hand down beside left chest. Roll up onto your right hip. So kickstand, level 1. Or level 2, bottom leg straight. Top left leg scissor behind. Or level 3, bending through left knee, planting left foot behind right thigh. Your choice. Back to your breath. Now numbing, numbness or tingling. That's what I was trying to say. If you experience those in your arm, that means your brachial plexus is got issues going on. So you're either compressing the nerves or you're cutting off your blood supply. Neither is an ideal goal in yoga. So please just be really mindful. So exploring our connection between right shoulder, left hip now on this side, through the spiral line, through the functional lines. The functional lines make a big X through your front body and your back body. They start in your arms, and then they cross over to the opposite hip. Really interesting lines in the body. Last few breaths here. Okay, slowly come out of the pose, all the way back into Superman for a moment. And then lifting your head up. So that was addressing the front arm lines and the connection to the pec. And now we're going to switch to the back arm lines and connection to scapula or shoulder blades. So you're going to walk your left hand forward a bit. Flip your right palm up. Now your right arm is going to thread underneath your left. And you're going to come right down onto the outside edge of your left shoulder, or right shoulder, sorry. So right palm is up. So there we are, getting into those back arm lines and scapula connection. Now, some of you may be able to drop your head down onto the mat or onto your body. I have to keep my head elevated a bit because I have an earpiece in for the microphone. But you put your head where it's comfortable. And some of you might even need a block supporting the right side of the head. Now, as we're here in this position, I want to draw your awareness to your left hip because we are working that spiral line and functional line, those X's. So there may be a tendency for your left hip to want to roll up towards the sky if that side of you is tight. So really think about leveling out through your pelvis. Really ground into that space below your belly button. Imagine you had to balance a drink on your sacrum. Another few breaths here. All right. Unthreading the right arm. Now you can stay where you are, but I'm just going to do a little flip here. And we will take our right arm forward this time. Left palm turns up. Left arm threads underneath the right, coming onto the outer edge of the left shoulder, your deltoid. So again, resting the head where you can, or maybe using a block. So what's happening in the right hip? Does it want to roll up to the sky? Try not to let it do that. So this posture is often called thread the needle arms or broken wing. So these upper body fascial connections and tissues that we are stressing in a good way, I mean, really can have a big implication in the body because your hips and your shoulders are intricately connected. They're like peanut butter and jam, they go together. So we often say in the body world, you can work other parts of you to help out your original goal. So for example, if you have really tight shoulders, if you work more into your hips, you will help improve the shoulders and vice versa. Right? So if you have really tight hips, spend some time with the shoulders because they are so connected. And sometimes you're not entirely sure where things are coming from, right? Why is something tight? So I mean, now with all our much more advanced knowledge, thanks to decades of research on fascia, we know that everything is connected. There is no local part and there's no local movement. And sometimes where pain or inflammation is in the body, the problem is somewhere else. That's just where it shows up. Problem can be somewhere down the line, fascia train, or up the line. So that's kind of the challenging part, is figuring out, okay, where are these things coming from? Last few breaths here. All right, let's unthread the needle and bring ourselves with our hands right in underneath our shoulder caps. We're going to ignite all our pushing muscles and lift ourselves up and away from the mat. And we are going to grab the bolster. So again, substitute if you don't have a bolster. Roll up a really big blanket, or maybe you have a cushion. So we're going to start to pay a little attention to our side body now. So in yin, we have this fun little pose called banana asana, where we lie on the ground and we make ourselves shape a banana. We can do it from seated. So it's all about lateral flexion of your spine, but we can really get into the rib cage quite nicely. So if you have your bolster or whatever you're using for a prop, we're going to start on our left hip. So come onto your left hip, and then your left rib cage is going to rest right on that bolster. And you're going to laterally flex over top of the bolster or prop. So if you take your left arm out, you should be able to rest your left ear on your left bicep. Now, you're going to have some options for this right arm. So some people enjoy bringing the right arm right up and over. Others say, no, I don't like that, or they get tingling or numbness, which you have to pay attention to. So then you could just bend through the right elbow and let the back of the right hand just rest behind your sacrum. And if none of those things work, you could just keep your arm alongside your body. You get to figure out which one. So lateral flexion of our spine to the left means now we're getting this nice big opening through our right side body. So from the top of your pelvis through the sideways, up through the rib cage, and if you take the arm up and over, you're even getting right up into the armpit. So this is your lateral line of fascia in your body. It's a really important line. I have a whole practice devoted to it in this series of videos, and you'll see Banana Asana in its more traditional form in that one. Why is the side body important? Well, it's the stabilizer of the body. So when you think of your fascia trains, you've got that big front deep core line, you have the superficial back line, and then you have the spiral lines and the functional lines, which are worrying about everything on a rotational plane, so to speak. Your side body or your lateral seams are the stabilizers. So we got a lot of movement happening through the front body and the back body, and on a transverse plane when we rotate, right? But you need something to stabilize all those degrees of movement. So side body is it. And you have a really huge seam of fascia called your IT band from the top of the hip down to the knee. If you're a runner, or if you've ever had IT band issues, you know what that's all about. So a lot of people do a lot of rolling of their IT bands, etc. But in addition to being the stabilizing force in our bodies, it's really important that we breathe into the side waist and side body. Got a lot of things going on in here, right? And then in acupuncture, we've got the gallbladder meridian, we've got the spleen meridian. There's some important meridians in the side body. So really think on that inhale. Feel those right ribs expanding out. And on the exhale, moving back in towards the midline or your spine. Last few breaths here on this side. So if you have that right arm up and over past the crown of your head, nice and slow, bring it back down. Or likewise, if you have the hand behind your sacrum, just bring your hand in. And then just bring your hand to your bolster, your prop, and we're going to nice and slow bring ourselves out of that lateral flexion and then just come to seated. In between sides here. You'll switch your prop over in preparation, but let's just take a moment here. Just noticing the difference between the sides. All right, let's give that other side the same treatment. So bolster, prop on the right side of your body. You come onto your right hip. You get your right rib cage right over top of that prop. Right arm extending down to your mat. Lateral flexion to the right, targeting in this left side body. So maybe left arm coming up and past the crown of the hat, or bending through left elbow, left hand just rests behind your sacrum, or left hand alongside the body. What works for you? So coming back into your breath. And just remembering, once you've found the place that works for your body, on this side, you need to just find some stillness. Focus back in on your breath. Focus in on that left rib cage, expanding on the inhale, contracting on the exhale. Last few breaths here on this side. So bringing the left arm out of the pose wherever it happens to be. And left hand just coming to your prop to just help support yourself up. Nice and slow, coming out of that lateral flexion. And then coming back to just sitting and noticing any sensations that arise out of those side bodies. So the very last thing we are going to do today is called fish or supported fish. You're going to need your 2 blocks. This is a great posture to do at the end of a day, especially if you're a person that sits at a desk. So there's a couple of rules. We're going to put 1 block at the very bottom of our shoulder blades and the other block at the very base of the skull. If you're starting on the lowest setting, because you don't have a lot of opening through your front body, this block under the ribs, or under the bottom of the shoulder blades, on the lowest setting, the one under the head, 1 setting up. If you have quite a bit of opening, you'll take the one under the shoulder blades to mid setting, the one under the head to the highest setting. Now, I'm going to end the video saying that this could be your Shavasana. So it's completely up to you if this works for you. And when I say now it's time for Shavasana and you can stay here, or you can come into traditional Shavasana position. So I'm going to set you up to leave you. This is a great posture to do before bed, and just counter pose all of that forward rounding movement that you have probably spent most of your day in. So coming into fish, easiest way is from your sit bones. Take the 1 block, it's going to come under the bottom of the rib cage or the bottom of the shoulder blades. So that takes a little bit of maneuvering. And then you'll get into the bottom of the shoulder blades. So your heart should be lifted like somebody's pulling a string right up through the sternum. Then, depending on what height you need for under your head, getting that ready and placing it right under the skull. So above that bony ridge again, not into your neck. Your neck should be completely suspended off of the block. Now, once you've got the upper body anchored and you're happy with the amount of opening, you can take your arms out either chest height or closer to the hips, hands closer to the hips. It's whatever works for you. But what I want you to do is turn the palms up, backs and hands grounded. That's going to keep those shoulder blades at rest on the back. Now, options for legs. You can take your legs, fully extend them, have them a little wider than hip distance and feet flipped open to the sides. Or you could do a little butterfly legs here if you wished. Or you could keep knees touching, feet wide, a little constructive rest legs. Or you could cycle through them. The bottom half doesn't really matter. So what's happening in our fish pose? Well, a lot. We're getting a lot of opening through the front body. Our back body is getting extension into the lumbar, but our rhomboids, so those are other muscles that hold the shoulder blades on the back, they're getting a release. So you feel how your shoulder blades are just sort of dropping towards the earth. They don't have to do any work here. And then through the sternum, we're opening up. And this is going to allow that diaphragm to have this really nice long range of motion up and down through the abdominal thoracic cavity. That's really important because when we're sitting, for example, in a chair at a desk over a keyboard or what have you, we are collapsing into the sternum, which means our diaphragm has very little room to move. And it's not going to be a good breath. This is why I am saying that this is the best way you could end your day in supported fish. Fully coming back into that nice diaphragmatic breath, diaphragm having lots of range of motion here. Counteracting all of that forward rounding you've done through the day, opening up through the chest, pectorals and arm lines, everything getting just a really, really effective counter pose. So some people love this pose so much that this is more comfortable for them than Shavasana. And that's why I'm telling you that you have the option to stay here for your Shavasana. So I'm just going to set you up now either way. Just want you to unclench your back teeth. Just allow that lower jaw to relax away from upper jaw. Keep the mouth closed. Tongue releases away from roof of mouth and rests on lower palate. Tip of the tongue behind the back teeth, or the front teeth, I should say. Just making sure muscles through the cheeks and the temples are relaxed. Smooth out the worry lines on the forehead. So check in with that little space between the eyebrows again. Eyebrows drifting away from each other, moving towards the ears. Maybe you're going to close your eyes here. Or just soften your gaze down towards the tip of your nose. Backs of hands are grounded. Fingers gently curled. Now, if you did take some butterfly legs, I would like you to draw the knees back to touch. Keep knees touching. Walk the feet wide and just take a few breaths here, counterposing those hips. And then taking the legs long, wider than hip distance, feet flopping open to the sides. So I encourage you to let this be your Shavasana because it's got so many benefits. And it's a really nice way to be in Shavasana because you're very supported. So a lot of people do struggle with lying flat on their back in Shavasana, and here in supported fish, there is no struggle. So just shift the awareness from the breath. Just let your awareness shift into the space between your eyes. And just notice the stillness here. The quiet within. So we have this code of yoga. It's called the Yoga Sutras. Sutra translates as thread in Sanskrit. So yoga threads, it's how you weave your practice together. And the very first sutra says, now the yoga begins. And the very second says, yoga is the cessation of the fluctuations of the mind. So we're not practicing yoga so we can tie ourselves up in knots and make crazy poses that you can post on Instagram, should you be so inclined. We are practicing yoga as a form of moving meditation so that the mind benefits. Now, of course, the body benefits too, but we should never lose sight of the fact that we're actually practicing yoga. We work deep into our bodies so that the mind has less fluctuations. Fluctuations being thoughts. So you're never going to eradicate all your thoughts, but you can slow them down and you can make more space between them. And you can also learn to not attach to them. So I encourage you for the next while, as long as it works for you, just to stay here with your eyes closed and your inner vision, your inner eyes crossed up into that space between your eyebrows. And just staying here with the space between the thoughts.